Yeah, so we're going to do this through Skype. We're combining two video feeds together at the same time, so hopefully this is going to turn out as we anticipate. If not, it might be a little dicey with the audio going back and forth, but I'm sure we'll be able to figure it out.
Yep.
How do we want to start this off? Do we want to announce the winner maybe, or should we delay that a little bit?
Oh, well, we can announce that we're going to announce the winner, and then we'll save it towards the end. So everybody's hooked now. Or they're just going to skip to the end. Yeah.
We should tell people that there is somebody who won and who guessed it right on. In fact, there's not just one person who guessed it right on. There are 5 people who guessed correctly.
Oh, wow.
But, of course, there's only one winner, and that's the person who guessed first.
And they were all pretty recent.
So we're going to...
It wasn't just that one person guessed it right off the bat. It was not long ago, right?
Yeah, and I think that was interesting as to how the guesses kind of evolved over time and how they started off rather low and then they sort of increased as far as weight loss goes. We can say we lost weight, we'll admit it, just to get that out of the way. It makes it a little bit easier to talk about things. We did lose weight. Actually, people know by now the weight loss anyway because we're posting this right after, so they'll know what it is.
Yeah.
But they may not know, they might not remember their guesses and who did it first. So anyway, yeah, we did lose weight. I have some notes here on the iPad. Yeah, so we did lose weight. I think we should talk about the number of calories we burned because a lot of people thought maybe we didn't burn that many calories. I don't know if you remember. We burned on average, or at least you burned, according to your Fitbit, 4,100 calories per day.
Yeah.
So I think that was a little bit surprising. Most people think you can get away with 1,500 to 2,000 calories.
Yeah.
So I don't know, do you want to talk about that at all? Like the amount of activity?
I was thinking about that, and I might actually have burnt more than that, because one thing I noticed about my Fitbit is it doesn't seem to count canoeing very well, but when I'm walking or running, it seems to count really well. So there might have been more calories burned. I haven't read up on much about how accurate Fitbits are, but it seemed to reflect like an increase in activity levels. Like we never stopped, right? We had one day in the rain.
No, we didn't.
Where we sat. We didn't even sit for the 3 hours because we were standing around for part of it. So we were not good conservers of energy.
No, and we did that in effort to actually win at the challenge, which was to not lose weight. I think if we would have sat down and did nothing, we know more or less what we'd have lost over the course of the 5 days. It was pretty much a given we would have lost weight. We wouldn't have won. And what was interesting to me is just how many calories we did burn, and that just speaks to the amount of activity that someone has to do if they're not given food.
Yep.
You have to go out and get it, and that's an energy input, whether you like it or not. You can't just live off 15 or 2,000 calories like you would at home. You have to burn 1,500 calories to get the 2,000 or 2,500 calories that you need in order to make the math work in the long run.
Yep.
And that can bring us into the sort of things that we ate. I have a list here. If people were paying attention, we ate pike, catfish, raspberries, milkweed, chokecherry, pincherry, blueberry, bunchberry. We tried cattail, we tried duck potato, we tried wild raisin, lily root was not a success, snails, crayfish, clams, wintergreen, beaked hazel, not much of it, lobster mushroom, sweet gale or miracle gale as seasoning, and spotted touch-me-nots. That's a fairly long list. I just got the phone here. I'm just going to end that. So we did have a long list of things we ate, but none of them were the right things, right? I mean, what do you think we would have needed as far as to make this a go, to meet our caloric requirements?
Yeah, I think like fat for sure, or a staple starch. If we'd had some kind of a staple, like acorn flour, or if we'd had
Hello. 8:49 on Monday.
I guess I should have got rid of the phone, huh?
Yep. Just the fridge is there. Just throw it in the freezer.
Throw it out
in the freezer. In the freezer.
Yeah, I should. Hold on, I'll throw it in the fridge. Did that work?
I can barely
It's the
hear
fridge
it.
is still talking.
Yeah.
Can you hear it? I can hear it a little bit. The fridge is still talking.
Yeah, I can hear. I barely hear it.
Anyway, it's my brother. I'll call him back. Yeah, so we didn't get the right foods, right? I mean, we needed some fat. We didn't have fat.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe
But
the
a
starch
carbohydrate
table.
would have been enough, right? A starch too would have helped.
Yeah.
So it's debatable how much we would have needed, but definitely more. It wasn't enough just to live off lean protein. And I mean, I knew that, but I didn't know the extent of it. I thought we probably could have got away with just eating, enough fish. If we just ate more fish, would be okay, as long as we got the amount of calories. But somebody pointed out on the channel that you can only process about 1,500 calories worth of protein per day. You just can't digest anymore, which
okay.
kind of makes sense.
Interesting.
So I'll have to look into that. That's more like a ketogenic diet kind of thing. What else do we have on here? So as everybody knows, we lost 17.2 pounds combined. Some of the things that we didn't put up that by day 3 we did a measurement, our weight. You had lost 6.6 pounds by the 3rd day. I had lost 3.6 pounds by the 3rd day. By the 4th day, you had lost 7.6 pounds, and I had lost 5.4 pounds. So the weight loss that we experienced was pretty linear and steady as we went along. It wasn't sort of at the end. We hadn't stabilized their weight, which I think might be a key for the next challenge, is to try to stabilize the weight at some level.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that, whether we should be able to maintain our weight or we should be able to stabilize it.
Yeah, well, it's hard to say, right? Because I think for me going into it heavier, that I might stabilize it, but if your weight was going to stabilize, it would have stabilized because you had no reserves left, right? So, the trick would be to try and reach a point where you stabilize by getting more calories, which is where we fell short. We had too few calories.
And so going in at my approximately 15% body fat, you think that's probably a fairly good benchmark? Your body probably doesn't want to dip below that level. So maybe having a higher percent body fat, your body's gonna tend to want to lose a little bit before it gets into a stable kind of body weight arena where you're not going to lose anymore. Your body's not going to tend to want to shed it anymore.
Yeah, well,
so I think that's pretty fair.
I think humans have probably adapted to be able to store fat quickly, right? So, I mean, there's a level where you're happy, but you can also pretty happily up your percent body fat and then drop it subsequently by 10 or 15%. I'm sure is no problem. So when times are good, you can pack on those extra pounds in fat, and then when times are lean, you just eat off that fat.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have any experience with a ketogenic diet, but apparently you lose a lot of weight at the beginning, and mostly it's water weight, and then your body somehow replaces the water without you actually getting out of a ketogenic stage. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, well, one thing was interesting is you had sent me an article about someone who historically did a meat-only diet, right? And there was one line in that article, they talked a lot about their fitness and their weight loss or whatever, but they said their water balance changed, but they didn't elaborate on that. And one thing for you and I is we just straight burning of calories does not account for all of our water loss, but I felt like all of our weight loss, but I felt like not all my weight loss could have been water loss because I was hydrating like crazy. Like we both drank a lot of water.
Sure. I think the point is the water balance is supposed to shift. So maybe maybe a certain percentage of that was water, and then your body will rebalance with time in a keto, while still being in the ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
So I think that's the argument that people are saying, well, you're just losing water, and then maybe if you're in keto for long enough, then your body will replace the water, and then it's not just purely a water loss kind of thing. So
okay.
I will say I definitely lose body mass. Like there's no question about it. I did lose body mass.
Yeah.
And I lost strength because, like I pointed out during the series, that my arm felt smaller. It was legitimately smaller. When I came back and I started exercising again, there was a difference.
Yep.
And I don't know if did you manage to keep your weight off, or did you try to keep your weight off?
Until Christmas.
Yeah.
So I think, like what was my total weight loss? It was 10 point something. It was basically 2 pounds a day.
Yours was 9.8 pounds total.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I put back probably 4 or 5 pounds, but then I was level at that point for months and months. And then at Christmas, I think it's all come back on, but I haven't been on a scale in a while, so I'd have to give you an update on that.
I was going to ask you if you had weighed out since then and what the number was. I will say that my total body fat as measured by caliper at the end of it was just below 9% body fat.
Yes,
according to the caliper measurements.
Yeah.
Pretty low.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what I started at, but I would guess it was somewhere around 12-13%.
Okay.
Would just be a benchmark guess. We did weigh out on the 6th day. That was the day after the challenge, after we ate pretty good meals. And you put on 2.2 pounds by the 6th day. You added 2.2 pounds, and I had added 4.2 pounds by the next day.
Yeah.
Which is pretty striking. That could be the shift back in the water balance, or it could be just the fact that I ate constantly.
Yep.
I really did eat constantly, so my body would have been back into repair mode, and putting that weight back on.
Yeah, I think you can easily fluctuate a few pounds, day by day based on what you eat and what you poop out. But like our weight loss was, as you mentioned earlier, was very linear through the 5 days, right? Like that wasn't just fluctuation, that was a steady downward drop.
Yeah, and we were legitimately hungry. Like I felt legitimately hungry the entire time.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe I think you didn't notice it as much.
No.
By the 9th day, I was just taking casual measurements every once in a while. I was back up 7.6 pounds, so almost back to normal from when we started. And currently, my body weight is 143 pounds, which is 13.6 pounds higher than
when you
the
started.
lowest amount than when we started. Yeah, and that's I won't say I've been overeating, but that's registering the amount of body weight that I normally carry. Before I did my fasting originally in the summer, where I did an initial fast, intermittent fasting, and then that kind of carried forward into the challenge. So now I'm back up to 143 pounds from the low of 129. So that's pretty close to my max or average weight. And so you don't know, would you guess you're obviously more or less where you at, maybe a couple extra pounds, but you're not overeating or trying to lose weight or anything like that, but
no,
you put a little bit more back
on.
on.
Yeah, Christmas does that to you, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, maybe not me. A lot of people are saying I should put on weight to go on alone, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
No. All right, so as far as recovery go, I will say that for 2 months straight, all I thought about was food. The next meal, it was like a lot of people talk about that, where they have to shut that off, and my body didn't shut that off for basically the next 2 months, where I looked forward to every meal, breakfast especially, and then the 3 meals after that. Like food was really good, and right now I'm back into my regular mode, so I'm not really feeling like food's a big deal anymore. But for the first 2 months or so, it was really a big deal to me. Did you have any of those effects, or?
No, and like you had gotten turned right off a pike, right? And we had extra pike at the end of our last day. Like I brought that to my parents' place, and we ate it all the next day. I was happy to eat more of that pike, and I had no food cravings. I had no, I just went to eating my bowl of porridge in the morning, and I wasn't looking forward to meals. Like, I look forward to meals, but I would say that I didn't have that same effect, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I would say, mine. I still have the pike in the fridge.
Yeah.
So, I currently don't have any plans of eating it.
No.
But I eventually, obviously, I will.
Yeah.
Some of the questions: does pike taste good? A lot of people think that probably pike doesn't taste good.
Oh, it tastes fine.
Yeah, I agree. Pike's fine, and the way we cooked it tasted fine too.
Yeah.
It was just too much of it. What kind of knife do you use?
Oh, well, I have the same knife I always use, which is a little folding Kershaw knife. So that's cleaned deer and it's cleaned rabbits on our last trip and done all kinds of stuff. I used it extensively on that trip. And did I have a second knife that I used? Just a fillet knife.
I think you had a multi-tool as well.
Oh yeah, maybe a multi-tool.
Did you? I don't know.
Yeah.
Usually, I'd say usually you have the multi-tool, but yeah, that knife too.
So
and I have a trout and...
It's a Victorinox multi-tool.
So you don't have a bushcraft knife?
I do, but I didn't use them on that trip. I have a Tops Dragonfly, which I really like.
Mine's a Grolman knife. It's a Canadian made out of Nova Scotia, I believe. It's a trout and bird. I like it. It's just a small knife, utility knife, more or less. It's for light work.
Yeah, and I have a Groman Russell belt knife that I often take on trips, but I didn't have it on that trip, I don't think.
So were we productive on the trip? Do you think we balanced our calories?
No. We were productive, but not productive enough.
Right. We could say that we wasted our calories doing what we were doing?
I think you and I would differ on that, because I had fun wasting calories in every way that we wasted them.
I would agree that it was fun.
Yeah. Canoeing all over the lakes and trolling and casting and splitting firewood. We didn't really cut more firewood than we used, I guess, at our first campsite because we moved. We ended up cutting more firewood there than we ended up burning, right? So, and we tidied up that campsite pretty good. It was pretty rough. So, was that a waste of calories? We could have just pitched our tents and danced around rotten boards full of nails, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would say my wasting calories to me is more like we didn't replace the ones that we got, but it was fun. I would have preferred to do it while not being hungry.
We didn't do anything frivolous, right? Like we didn't race each other across the lake or anything like that. Everything we did was intended to return calories. That big hike the one day was very calorie intensive and it did not pan out. All we brought back were water lily roots that we couldn't even eat. So that was a waste, but not on purpose.
Yeah, and the milk, we got the milkweed too.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but
like 0 calories.
We had intended to get choke. Yeah, we had intended to get choke cherries and raspberries and some other big harvest, but that didn't happen. And that was really the reason why we left, is because that was our hopeful source and it didn't pan out.
Yeah.
So we didn't waste calories as far as like making bushcraft things.
No.
Like I criticize alone for, where we're not building projects for no particular reason. We were throwing calories at trying to get calories back.
Yeah.
We should probably keep our shirts on.
Oh yeah, that was a comment, eh?
One of the common comments. Maybe next time we'll keep our shirts on.
Yeah.
We should also try to be more entertaining.
Well, I thought I was a circus clown out there the whole time.
Yeah, I thought I was, but no, we wasn't trying to be entertaining. We're not entertaining people. We're just, I don't know. We're focused on the problem, right?
Yeah,
the fun happens off camera.
For your viewers, I'll prank you on our next outing. I'll bring a bunch of pranks and
yeah.
I'll prank you. Shave your
I look
beard while
forward
you're
to that.
sleeping.
You better make. Yeah. You're gonna make sure the camera's rolling. Why you turning the camera on, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah.
And then we get a lot of comments on killing the fish, and I'll admit I was never taught to kill fish before, or even during or after immediately. So I'm learning it as I go, and honestly, it slips my mind almost every time. It's not something I have the habit of doing, and Jeremy's better at it than I am, and he'll remind me. But yeah, putting the fish on the stringer was a normal thing for me, and then cleaning them without dispatching them, it was just what we did. So I was never taught anything else. So I am trying to get better at doing that, just for the record. Where would we do it next? Where would be a better place, do you think?
I think we'll be in the same geographical region, so same climate, same resources approximately, but we have a couple of different ideas about what we might want to try and do differently if we're going to try and tap into something in abundance, or just try and do something similar in a similar type of lake. I liked going from where we were, which was all pike. I liked going to that lake that had a little bit of a mix of perch and pike and catfish, and there were the berries. That's a good zone, but it's not really I'd rather go somewhere a little bit further off the beaten path than that.
Yeah, and we might look at different seasons too. It might be difficult for you to do something during the hunting season, for example.
Yeah.
But having duck, geese, rabbit, maybe even get into bear would be something that we could think about trying to accomplish, but it's going to be difficult as far as your schedule goes. But I think that would be more ideal, where we can combine the fish with also getting something that might be a boon,
Yeah.
like a bear, or
Yeah.
even a deer or something like that.
Yeah.
Would be ideal. So I don't think we're going to leave the geographical location, because it's pretty cost prohibitive at this point. So the next series most likely will occur generally along the same place, except we're going to have to try to find a way to make it work, or at least tackle it a little bit differently. I have some ideas in mind, but I don't want to give up any spoilers. But I think there is a way that we can try to make it work, and some of those hints are getting into the other seasons, or at least trying to work those other animals in,
Yeah.
and also getting better resources as far as the starches go. There might be a better way to do that. Whereas it was hard for us to get cattails, because they're more spring and fall. Spring
Yeah.
might be different, but fall is when all the seasons open. So we had have to juggle that. I think. I don't know if definitely not going to do it again the exact same way, where we're just trying to go and get fish. There has to be another door open.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of that too is like let's say we're after acorns, they're in abundance, but you can't do a 5-day or a 7-day trip and just collect acorns, because it takes months to process them. You have to let them dry, and then you have to hull them. Like, you can't do that in 5 or 7 days, right? So we've had this discussion where I think you have to stitch together abundance from different seasons, and you take staples in with you from weeks ago or months ago that you gathered when they were abundant. So I don't know how we can work that into a challenge, but
Yeah,
it would
and
be fun.
we did one just like that. It'll follow this series.
Yep.
It'll be the video up next, where we go out and hunt and bring resources with us from other seasons.
Yep.
So you're going to see what it would look like had we been collecting the entire, or not diligently, but collecting to a certain extent in other seasons, and then combining that for something that's more productive.
Yeah.
Do you think we could do this without any gear at all? 10 items?
No.
No. It's too hard, right? I mean, maybe somewhere in the world, but definitely not where we're doing it.
No, and like all those things are seasonal too, right? So yeah, I was making cordage last night. I could probably catch fish on a piece of primitive cordage that I made, but that cordage, you can only really gather it in the fall. So then you have to use less desirable cordage, and all those things really take time. I don't know that you can just get dropped and just have your materials in the right season, have your food abundance in the right season. Those are really tricky things.
Yeah. I just had a note that we proportionally we burned about the same amount of weight per body mass.
Oh.
So your body didn't necessarily work less efficiently or more efficiently than mine, or vice versa. We burned proportionally by weight, approximately the same amount. So even me at a lower body fat percentage,
Yeah.
it wasn't an asset. My body continued to go down linearly, just the same as yours did.
Yeah.
So if it would have continued forward, I'd be dead. I don't know. I guess in 2 more weeks, I would have been pretty rough shape in about 2 more weeks at that rate.
Just eat yourself to death.
Yeah, well, that's what's happening, right? Eventually the heart stops, because that's the last thing you have to consume.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned maybe we should bring livestock or milk a beaver.
Oh yeah, we could milk a beaver for sure.
Yeah. Beaver's one of the things I want to explore as an item, because they're easy to get. If we tried to hunt beaver on our last trip, the one that's coming up, not the last trip, but the one that's coming up next.
Yep.
We could have hunted 11. We could have trapped overnight. If we set half a dozen traps, how many do you think we could catch out of 6 traps?
Well, we probably could have shot 10 on that one paddle trip we took, right? We saw 10 different beavers
Yeah.
in 3 miles, I think. But you
And
know, doing it legally is another thing, because you can't shoot a beaver unless it's a nuisance beaver and you need a trapping license. And there's a season, right?
Right,
So,
and we can't trap beaver either. At least not us in particular. We can trap them if we have a trap line, but we don't have a trap line, so it's
No.
not illegal for us to trap them.
well, we can, because we can discuss that. But like, my parents have nuisance beavers on their property, so we could go and remove some of their nuisance beavers, for example. Or if one of us had our trapper's license and have a private land where you can trap, then you can legally take them in season.
Okay, so that's an option too. If we say we want to get a beaver one day, we're going to your property where we can do it legally.
Yep.
We're camping out there for the night, and we're hoping we get a beaver the next day.
Yep.
So there's an option right there to do it legally.
Yep.
And then we get to experiment with what eating a beaver will do to our nutritional balance and needs. So that's a fair idea right there. Eating the whole fish. A lot of people commented about the fact that we should have been eating the head. You had some advice about eating fish head soup from pike. So I don't know if you want to relay that, what you were told about fish head soup for pike.
Yeah, from a friend who will make fish head soup out of anything, but finds it really off-putting to be done with pike. And I've made fish head soup before, and I've enjoyed it immensely, but the pike was not. It made me kind of sick in my stomach when we were trying to drink it, right? So, and maybe there are things we could have done more carefully. Maybe we scraped the slime. Maybe we take the gills out, because I don't know if we took the gills out.
Well, we didn't use the heads, right?
It was just bodies.
Yeah.
I can't remember now, but I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
No.
I don't know. I'd do it with the perch though, or another fish. I'd make fish head soup, boil it up. Yeah, we talked to somebody who talked about the brains, and that's Wes posted a good video follow-up showing how he cooks the fish on the edge of the fire, heating up the heads first, and then his theory is that all the fats in the brain migrate along the spine and into the meat. And once the heads are at temperature, he moves the whole fish onto the fire. I found that really interesting.
Yeah.
Give it a
And
try.
Wes talked about also the fact that you have to eat the skin, and we didn't. We cooked this with the skin on, so we probably were getting some of the fat, but we weren't getting all of it. So what we needed to do was scale it, and I had never scaled a fish before, because we always filleted them, and then we'd fry them in oil. That's just or butter, or batter them and deep fry. So it had never occurred to me to even bother to do that.
No.
And once you're immersed in it, it's just a slow spiral backwards. You may think, okay, we're losing. What can we do? I don't know. We get more fish, I guess. But you don't think about, okay, well, let's do something different here, because you just do what you're always taught. So your instincts and life history kind of take over, and you end up just doing the same things over again, except more. So we never stopped to think about, okay, we need to start scaling these fish and eating the skin, or maybe just the skin. And maybe we need to just eat the brain, because our lean protein to fat ratio is way off. And there's a study that I found where you need to get about 80% fats to 20% protein if you do nothing but protein. And we were probably the exact opposite.
At least.
And that's to avoid going into rabid starvation. And apparently, if you do that for 2 or 3 weeks, you end up your digestive system's just done. It shuts down, and you end up with diarrhea. And you need to add that fat back in. And then over the course of 2 days, once you add the fat back in, you improve. So I didn't know that. You didn't know that?
No, and to be fair, when we were making the fish soup or the fish head stock as an experiment, we hadn't weighed out yet. And my feeling at the time was, we're winning this. We're eating pike like crazy. We have milkweed pods. I'm eating 3 meals a day, and I'm not feeling hungry, so I must not be losing weight. But let's do the fish soup just because we should, not because we felt we needed to, right? So we had very little incentive at that point to eat that soup, and it was disgusting.
That's what I found was interesting, is that you, from the start, probably were not realizing how bad I was, probably.
No.
And I was suffering the entire time, and I'm like, well, when are you going to join me in this, this pain and suffering? But You never did.
No.
So I mean, that could relate back to the differences in how much we have in reserves.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think if you got down to the 10% body fat where I was near the end, you'd be like, okay, every meal now is crucial.
Yeah.
And I need to start eating like an athlete would. It's like 6 meals a day, smaller portions kind of thing, as an athlete does eat when they get below that 12% body fat, which is pretty typical of a teenage athlete. They're eating all the time just to keep their energy levels up.
Yeah.
Fruit leather. So making something useful from the choke cherries. We didn't manage to do that.
No. Well, we made the choke cherry sauce, but it was still pretty sour, right? So without a sweetener, I don't know. That's something you experimented with some choke cherries after, I think. Did you?
I haven't yet, but I intend to. One of the things that Sam Thayer mentions in his book is that by drying them and then reheating them, it gets rid of the cyanide forming compounds in the seeds.
Okay.
And it also makes it far less sour without having to add any sugar. So that can be done by baking them in the sun or drying them over the fire and crushing the pits, and then you get a lot of the oils and the protein out of the pits themselves. But my question is, if anybody knows that out there, is whether or not that actually makes them not poisonous. I would love to know, because every source I've checked says it's supposedly makes it not poisonous, but I don't think there's any scientific research to back that up. Although the natives have been reported to do that and eat massive amounts of choke cherries in that very way, because they had no way of separating the pits out either, just as we had no way.
Oh. I find that hard to believe that that they wouldn't just pick them out, or they wouldn't rub them through a sieve or something to get the pits out, because you would not want to, you'd break your teeth chewing them,
Yeah, I think the idea was that they had crushed them with mortar and pestle.
Oh.
At least that's what was reported, and that could be the reason they might do that, is because maybe they want to free the fat and protein from the seed and actually make use of that as well.
Yeah, that would be neat to find out about.
So something to consider anyway. Would we cheat? A lot of people say we should just cheat, use gill nets, snares, traps, and so forth. So why didn't we just pretend it was a real survival challenge and just go full in?
Yeah, well, because it's against the law, and I don't want to ruin all my future of hunting and fishing, by breaking the law for an experiment. I think, academically for me, it's, can you do it within the law? And I don't know how you set up the experiment where you do it using, with a no holds barred. You'd have to have permission from the provincial government to do that. And would they do that? Is there anything to be gained from having people go out and break all the rules to prove a point? I doubt it.
Yeah, and the other thing is we can't record it. So if we can't record it, then if we come out heavier than we went in, people are going to ask us why, and we have to say, well, we cheated and we snared a beaver when you guys weren't looking, and we couldn't show it. Yeah. Because otherwise, it's not a legit experiment anymore, because we can't report all the things we did in order to maintain our body weight.
Yeah.
Would a big group help if we had more people helping us? Do you think that would be easier, harder, or the same?
I don't know, because you can have division of labor, right? Now, maybe if we had some people in camp and some people fishing, then we would have brought back more fish every day, but I don't know that would have made a difference in our case. You could have fished all day and I could have kept camp, right? Or made crayfish traps, or picked clams and snails. So I don't know. I think over a long season, yes, absolutely, bigger group. And there's really interesting academic studies. You can read papers about ideal foraging group sizes, and they talk about in different cultures, depending on what their food sources are, what your ideal group foraging size is. Like, how many humans in a tribe can you support based on hunter-gatherer? How many chimpanzees can you support given a certain amount of area? So it would be interesting.
Yeah, I think in our case there wasn't enough labor to divide anyway.
No.
Like you say, we were pretty eating one source of food. So if we had more people, we'd have to double the amount of pike we caught.
Yep.
And it wasn't helping us anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. I think if you're in a place where there is abundance, it would make sense to divide up and conquer. But if there's nothing to conquer, then the numbers don't necessarily matter. So the question is like, yeah, if we had bear open, or moose and deer open, and fishing open, and the tubers were in season, then we can divide up, and each group could be doing one thing, and then you'd have some success from the fishing and the collection of cattails, and then maybe somebody would be successful hunting bear, moose, or deer.
Yeah.
And so you'd have that boon if it happened, and if not, you wouldn't be stuck behind.
Well,
But
and if
we didn't
you
obviously have that in this case.
if you had something that you collected and it was stored in your camp, you've got somebody there making sure that the bear doesn't sneak in behind you and eat all your camp food while you're out hunting bear somewhere, right?
Yeah. Tree bark. Have you ever eaten tree bark? Some people mention we should just get starches from tree bark.
No, I haven't.
I haven't either. I have to try that, I guess.
You know what we should have done?
Would you do?
We should have
what's that?
we should have eaten more snails. After you looked up their caloric value and their fat content, like we should have just gone to town on the snails for the last 2 days instead of fishing pike the whole time.
Yeah. Well, and clams too,
Yeah,
because clams would have cost us practically nothing.
yeah, yeah, and they probably have more fat content than the fish we were eating. But we didn't know it at the time,
Possibly,
right?
yeah. No, yeah, we didn't know. Like it was, I think the number's 300 and some odd clams that you need for a day, which sounds impossible. But if you don't have to chew them, because you can't,
Yeah,
you can just swallow 300 clams. So that's something that we could fill our time with, or just, and it's not as energy costly as eating pike, for example.
yeah,
Whereas we had, paddling around in the canoe was quite taxing.
Yep.
For 4 hours a day, that's a lot of paddling, a lot of energy.
oh yeah.
Would you do it again?
Yep.
If we don't know the answer
I'm
to that
in.
one. Yeah. Would you go for longer than 5 days?
Yeah, if I could swing it with my kids, for sure.
Yeah. What's the longest you would try in a row?
Oh, I don't know, 6 months, 7 months.
All right.
Well, like
So unlimited.
until you have
I
to
would-
top, right? Like I don't want to put my health at risk. Like I would do it for as long as I'm still kind of learning something about the experience and see about
Yeah,
it.
and I'm about the same. I'd like to try 10 days for the next one, but I don't know if we'll be able to do it. But I would not like to continue if we kept on the same trajectory as last time.
No,
So I would do it almost indefinitely as long as I can maintain my health. I wouldn't want to suffer more, because I don't think it's proving anything just to continue along the same trend line.
no,
That unless it's stabilized at a certain level and then can add an uptick from there.
Yep.
But yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to put myself through. Oh, that's not the intention that I had going in, so that's not a reason for me. It's not motivation for me. I know I could continue to suffer. It's not a question. It's just I don't see the point in it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Would we bring supplements in? Would we bring something like pemmican or flour or corn or anything else to sort of give us an assist?
yeah. This goes
Think
back
there'd be
to
a
like
point in that.
living from your previous season's abundance, right? Like I find it really interesting, and this is in an upcoming video, but we brought things that were collected from other seasons on our last trip. That was fun, and it adds some variety, right? So it just depends on what we want to learn from the experience and what we think people are interested to learn from our experience. Do people want to see us go in with grub steak, right? Like to go in with 5 pounds of dried corn or 3 pounds of bear fat, and then everything else is supplemented. I don't know. You can figure out how much calories are in what you bring, and then you can work it into your calculation.
Yeah, and I think it would be pretty doable for us to do that with a carbohydrate, say,
Yeah.
or like the acorn flour. I think it's not a question of if. I think we could definitely do that. So I don't know if for me, I don't know if there's necessarily a point to bringing in a supplement, because I think it would be easy for us to do it now, knowing that we can catch 17 pike or collect X number of clams. I don't think it's a difficult challenge. I think the challenge is to get that balance without having anything, but make it unlimited, so we can choose any environment, any season, but it's up to us to decide what that season is, where we can start off with nothing and succeed.
Yeah.
To me, I think that's where the challenge lies.
Yeah.
What would you, if you're in a survival situation, like say you were on alone, what food supplement would you bring? What do you think you would bring us
Fat.
with you?
I'd bring fat.
You bring fat?
Yeah. Fat
Yeah.
goes
And
with
then
everything.
you'd hope you could get, you'd hope you could get some fish or berries or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree. I think fat is the limiting factor at this point.
Even just like,
I think if you can't catch,
go ahead.
if you can't catch, if you can't catch fish or an animal, then I don't think anything's going to help you at that point.
No.
But you're certainly not going to catch a fish that's fat, and you're not going to catch an animal. You know, maybe your animal's fat, but maybe chances are the animal you're going to catch probably doesn't have a lot of fat on it either, if it's a wild animal.
Yeah, depending on the season.
What tools do you think we would need to live off the land? If you were to go out and say you wanted to try to live 6 months or a year, what would you bring with you?
Legal tools? Like
Yeah.
no gill nets, but so
Well, I guess you could you say let's say all tools, including things that are maybe not necessarily legal here, but legal somewhere.
yeah,
So yeah, gill nets would count.
I guess so. Although I've never used one, but like a good fishing rod and line and your basic tackle. I'd bring a firearm. Like I'm really fond of my over/under rifle shotgun combo. I can do pretty much anything with that for hunting, from squirrels to bear. I would bring snares, and I would bring conibears. I have a little bit of experience with both of those kinds of trapping methods, and a good shovel, for digging all the kinds of tubers and things that you get from the ground.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Plenty of ammo, obviously.
Yeah.
A good set of traps, snares for sure. Full set of fishing gear, like you say, and lures.
Yep.
And also a canoe.
Yeah.
I think the canoe is definitely indispensable.
Canoe is for sure key.
And then of course all the other gear. But those are the main food procurement items. I would think that are almost necessary. And a fairly big gill net, or maybe several smaller gill nets that could be placed in various locations.
I'm looking forward to experimenting a little more with the crayfish trapping, because I think that could really pan out.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely another avenue, and they do have more the type of meat that is palatable because it has a good mixture of protein and fat.
Yeah.
At least it tasted that way.
Yeah.
Is wilderness living nothing more than fasting?
No.
I mean, it's kind of a double-ended question, right? Like, depends on the situation, I think. If you're talking about alone, I think alone is fasting at this point. I don't think they have the right tools to do it. That's my opinion. I don't know if we could live off the land for longer than what they're lasting right now without having the right kind of tools.
Yeah, well, you really limit yourself when you only have 10 items, right? But I think some of the things that they are able to do with just 10 items is really amazing. So some of those guys are probably wilderness living, where others of them are surviving.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree. Do you think this would be possible to do in the winter?
Yeah.
Where in our location?
Yeah, I think so. I know we can go out on the big lake nearby to my place and catch 50 perch a day. I challenge you to eat 50 perch in a day. Not only that, but you catch 50 perch and 35 of them are going to be so full of roe. It's all fat and protein. If you want to just eat perch, I think you could go a week just eating perch.
Yeah, somebody asked us if we were going to try in the winter, but I think it would be pretty boring to watch two guys more or less ice fishing for 5 days or so.
Yeah, and there's not really
not very.
There aren't a lot of meat animals you can trap in the winter either, right? Like, not that we're experienced trappers. Like, we can go and snare some hares, but it's not like we're going to go and set traps and eat coyotes all winter or fishers and martens. You can catch a few beavers, but
Yeah, and there's no berries and you can't get anything from the ground as far as tubers go, and there's just a whole bunch of doors that close as far as the winter season goes that we wouldn't make for a very exciting visual series anyway.
No.
And I have a question because I don't know. I've been trying to rack my brain on this too. Like, if we were trying to get a bear, how do we do that? If we weren't permitted to, like, we couldn't bring in bait with us, or we couldn't set up a bait. Do you think we could actually bait a bear in that time frame?
In 5 days. I doubt it. But I think if you go to the right place in 5 days, you know what? Like, I know where I work, we have an oak forest behind the campus, and people see bears every single day when the oaks are in season because the bears are flocking to that resource. So if you knew a good oak bush and you had 5 days, you might just be able to spend 5 days walking around and catch a bear up a tree eating acorns, right? Because that's what they do at that time of year. Where any other time you're trying to get them to come to you using bait.
Yeah, and to get a beaver, since we can't shoot it, we'd have to trap it either on your property or get on somebody's trap line. But as far as hunting beaver and anything else for that matter, is really pretty close. And those are the two items I think that would be fairly crucial for us, aside from deer, which is also pretty much a luck kind of deal, whether you get a deer or not in that specific area anyway.
Yeah.
So it gives us something to work toward anyway. So let's wrap this up. We haven't announced the winner yet.
No.
So somebody's gonna have to watch an hour of this before they figure out who won.
Yeah.
About an hour. So the winner is, we won't mention the runners up till after. So the winner, the person who guessed correctly first, is Restore All Things. He guessed correctly first, minus 17.2 pounds, and that was, just to be clear, it was episode 11, and he put his guess in on December 24th. So we're going with him as the winner.
Congratulations.
People are welcome. Yeah, congratulations for sticking through and putting all the guesses in. If somebody wants to dispute that, I say tough luck, because it was hard enough for me to keep track of all everybody's guesses for 14 episodes, and I paid really close attention to everything. So there's a couple other guesses I will mention, just so if you guys think you won, because you put minus 17.2. Jeff Woods also put in minus 17.2 on episode 9, but he put it on January 6th. January 7th, somebody put in, Travis McKinney also guessed that on the 7th of January. And I have the 14th of January, does that make any sense? Canadian Bushman also guessed that. So sorry guys, you're a little too late on the minus 17.2. So the winner, Restore All Things, congratulations buddy, you won. So contact me with your information and I'll send you the firebox stove out to you. And then we're going to do the random draw. I'll probably have a follow-up video because I'll have to do a little bit of work with the computer to do a randomized draw. So that'll be everybody who put a guess in for episode 1 through 14, plus the 2 additional videos, I believe. And so we'll draw from that. So do you want to close up with anything, Jeremy? Do you want to have anything to add?
No, I don't think I have anything to add. It was a really great experience, and it was really, it was great for me because I just had to go out and eat stuff, and you put together all the video. I tried to follow along with all the conversations and the comments. I really appreciate seeing people get involved. You kind of get to know a few people on YouTube, and everybody's got something to share. So I learned a lot from people who were commenting on what we did right, what they felt we did wrong. And so, I think taking all that to the next series will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I also learned a lot, and I thoroughly enjoy interacting with people because you are helping us by making your comments, whereas so other people might not like to hear negative comments. I don't mind. I don't even see them as negative, and I don't think Jeremy does either. You're just pointing out things that we could do to improve ourselves, which is ultimately what this is all about. It's a learning process for us. We're not masters at wilderness living. We have lots of bush experience, but we're definitely not people who live in the bush, as one of the YouTubers mentioned. The only way to live in the bush is to live in the bush, and we're not people that live in the bush, obviously. So what else do we have coming up? We have the fall hunt.
Yep.
Duck, geese, rabbit, grouse.
Yep.
We have an ice fishing video we did together.
Yep.
And we have a rabbit hunt on the docket.
Yep.
And then I have some other wild edibles coming up next. And I don't know, when's the next time we meet? Maybe for another ice fish or maybe another rabbit hunt or something like that.
Yep. For sure.
Some winter camping. For sure.
We'll do it.
All right. So wrap it up.
Yep.
Get her done.
Right on.
All right.